Why is it that you've claimed that the real choice is ultimately between monarchy or oligarchy rather than monarchy or democracy?
That slogan, if you want to summarize my career, it would probably be there. And we'll get into the whole killing of the king ritual a bit later. But the monarch, and I'm using the term broadly. It could be a military dictator, could be, again, the father of an extended family. But in the political realm, those people who are at war with the monarchy are seeking power. They don't believe that they get some of this French Revolution. They don't believe that they have the power and the income that they deserve. So the whole point of the French Revolution were these very powerful aristocrats who hated the idea that authority was to be found only in the crown. So the whole notion of revolution, of revolting against the monarchy, has to do with their own personal self-interest. It's extremely rare that you have any kind of an aristocratic republic that cares about the common good. Aristocracy exists only with the unifying force of the monarchy. You have the Polish Republic up until the end of the 18th century was a strictly oligarchical state, and they were quite willing to sell out the country to their enemies if it meant that their property was going to be threatened. This was the case in Russian history as well. And Ivan IV, so many of these monarchs had to deal with very powerful aristocrats who, in order to aggrandize their property holding, their money, their power over people, will do anything, including make alliances with the enemies of the country. That happens all the time. So the choice is either the common good or the good of those who are powerful. Now, of course, those who are powerful will always refer to that they're speaking in the name of the people, common good, utility, whatever it might be, but that's simply falsity. Strong monarchical states tend to do very well, internally and externally. The minute that falls apart, again, 18th century Russia is a classic example. The oligarchy takes over. They throw off any sense of responsibility. It's like a kid going to college, their freshman year, ends up doing a lot of irresponsible things. They're drunk with this power, and they simply exploit everyone around them. And that usually has disastrous results. Again, one of the big classic examples that I use all the time is the Renaissance. The creation of the oligarchy under the Medici banking family in Florence, but still using the slogans in the institution of the old regime, exactly is how they control. This is where Machiavelli came from. That's the foundation of modern politics. So either you have the common good, or you have a group of people revolting against it for their own personal interest. It's one of the two. And this has been the case historically, and it's the case ideologically.
Democracy then, in practice, involves a power elite able to pull the strings and ultimately is indistinguishable from oligarchy.
Well, in order to, you're talking about large countries. Democracy here functions only with politicians who, first of all, want power. Second of all, require powerful interests to back them. In America, if you don't have media interest, you don't exist. The media decide who's electable. The media decides who would be a good candidate. People who control the media are totally invisible to the population. Liberal democracy is based on a set of ideals that don't actually exist in practice. Most voters have no idea what they're voting for. They have no idea what the policies are. I mean, I have a whole article on why I don't vote, and I have, and it's lengthy, and it's the assumptions. If you vote in an election, the assumptions that you have to make are ridiculous. That the laws that exist in any society are there because voters have voted for them, which isn't true. That my vote is equal to others. The weight of each vote should be identical. That voting is a matter of personal preference. In other words, it's not truth, it's subjective opinion. That politics is not a specialized field. There's a connection between me voting and the public policies that result. In other words, you elect somebody The voter then has to believe this is going to have an impact on how the nation is governed. That once elected, the candidate will then be free from pressure or control from those more powerful, that he's responsible to the voters alone. That the voice of the majority is often correct, that the choices that you have to vote for are acceptable in the process of their selection. That the rhetoric of a campaign is indicative of what a politician might believe. That power and authority in politics is primarily electoral rather than economic or institutional. Not to mention the fact that you're claiming that politicians have the right to speak in your name, that a bare majority constitutes a mandate, and on and on and on. These are the assumptions you have to have before you vote at all. And since those assumptions are false, I've never voted. Not to mention the level of knowledge that you have to have. In fact, any law that's passed isn't even read by the politicians that are sponsoring it. Some of these laws are thousands of pages long, with all kinds of writers and amendments that even at the subcommittee level, have no idea what's happening. And these are all completely invisible to the average, including the average educated voter. And therefore, people have to be manipulated into believing otherwise. Money, power, acceptability, media control, the fact that you have pleased a powerful faction of the elite. This is the only way that you can, run even for mayor of something, let alone a national office. So the assumptions that go into liberal democracy are simply ridiculous. And voting puts your seal of approval on this system.